Imagine if you could quickly and permanently memorize the capital of Kyrgyzstan by picturing a snow leopard holding a giant check after winning the lottery in the mountains, or the capital of Eritrea by visualizing a smart rat wearing glasses and reading a book while reading a camel across the desert. And what if you could apply this to all of your study to memorize things 10 times quicker and for longer? So before we begin this video, let me introduce myself. I'm Thomas de Sud, co-founder of NIMPREP, a leading agency that helped over 250 students get into the top 5 business school in the US and in Europe. Talking about Wharton, Harvard, HEC, LBS. We helped all kinds of students from all kinds of backgrounds reach their dream school and academic goals. And today, in this video, I want to share with you practical techniques to improve your learning. Whether you're preparing for a difficult exam or you're applying to a competitive master program. Because unfortunately, in most schools, we are never really taught how to actually learn. And that's a skill that makes a real difference when preparing for an exam or a competitive application. In my career, I've seen thousands of students of all levels and of all backgrounds. And I know this firsthand. There's no such thing as people with naturally good memories versus bad memory. It all comes down to the technique. And that's exactly what I want to share with you in this video. I first discovered memory techniques when I was a prépa student in France, and I was revising for the entrance concourse to French business school. Back then, I remember I needed to memorize large sum of information in a very short period of time. I remember we used to have exam on Saturday, and we were doing 1 chapter per week per subject, and we had approximately 6 subjects or more depending on the semester. So it was quite intense. And basically that's when I realized that memory was a skill you could train just like any other skills. I found methods, I experimented, and by taking it very seriously, I learned my course faster, better, and without studying more than before. This allowed me to get a solid foundation in math, political economy, history, philosophy, on many subjects, and that's, I believe, one of the reasons I got admitted to one of the best business schools in the world, which is, in my opinion, London Business School, which opens doors for me to so many crazy opportunities in my life further down the line. And all of these prove one key point. It's all about the method. I'm not super smart. I would say that was pretty average when I was in high school. And I think that through my experience, you can take shortcuts and avoid doing a lot of mistakes that I was doing when I was a student. So as I said, today I work with many students from art background, economics, history, engineering school, to help them get ready for their master application in the best way possible, helping them learn way more effectively. So in this video, I want to give you as many tools as possible so you can as well build an efficient study method and feel much more confident in your learning. So first, let's start by understanding what memory actually is. Memorizing something, there's actually 3 key stages. First, new information enters what we call short-term memory. Second, then it can move deeper into long-term memory. And once it's in long-term memory, it needs to stay there. But there's a built-in program in our brain called forgetting, which can make information disappear. So to summarize these 3 steps, when information enters short-term memory, you need focus. To transfer it to long-term memory, you need association. And then to keep it in long-term memory, you need practice and repetition. So today I'm going to share techniques for each of these steps, and you will see it can completely transform the way you learn. So let's start with focus. In other words, being able to concentrate. So in order to understand how you can concentrate fully, you first need to understand how you can get distracted. Distraction is very simple. It either comes from external sources or internal ones. And by understanding these, which we'll call attentional distractors, you can apply 5 major methods to strengthen your focus and your ability to actually concentrate. The first method is eliminating external distractors. This one is pretty common sense. Imagine you're about to study, but your phone is right next to you, buzzing with notification. Of course, you're gonna get distracted. So put your phone far away, work in a quiet room, or wear noise-canceling headphones, use an app that blocks social media, etc. The goal is simple: remove anything around you that could pull your attention away from your work. The second method is being active while you learn. Getting distracted often happens when you're just sitting there, passive. So when studying, write things down, make notes, or highlight important parts. Try asking yourself questions about what you read. Try to understand what this concept is about, or it makes sense with the overall chapter, etc. Be actively paying effort to accelerate your understanding of the concept you're studying. It's like driving a car. When you're doing something, your mind stays focused. Even your posture matters. For example, if you're slouching on the couch, looking at notes, your mind will naturally wander. But sitting up straight, reciting, questioning the material, and getting involved in general helps you stay focused. The third method revolved around managing your mental load. You know that feeling when you're studying, but your mind is racing with thoughts like, what am I having for dinner? Did I reply to that email? Your brain becomes cluttered, basically. This cognitive burden, sometimes called the mental tax, significantly reduces your available brain power to actual learning. So what do I personally do? And a practical solution you can do as well is to keep a small notebook or digital note app while you're studying. Whenever a distracting thought arises, quickly jot it down and return to your work. This simple act tells your brain, I won't forget this, but right now I don't need to think about it. It's like creating a temporary storage space for thoughts that aren't immediately relevant, freeing up mental resources for the task at hand. It's a bit like when you clear your tab on your computer. Once you close all the extra, your device runs smoother. And in the same direction, you can also delegate if you can. So ask your family or friend to handle dinner or other small tasks. Basically, the less on your mind mean more space to actually focus. The fourth method is taking care of your physical health. This seems super obvious, but think about it. Have you ever tried to concentrate while you were sick? Imagine having a fever of 104 Fahrenheit degrees and trying to read a textbook. It's going to be hard, right? Beyond not being sick, one of the most critical factors for attention is sleep quality. Just like elite athletes stick to consistent sleep schedule to perform at their best, you should too. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. It won't just improve your focus, it also boosts every part of the learning process. 5. The fifth and final method is building your endurance for focus. So if you just finished high school and aren't used to studying for hours, it's normal to get tired quickly. Be patient with yourself, 1% every day. It's not a sprint, but a marathon. And just like you cannot run a marathon without training, you cannot expect to focus for a long period without practice. So start small. Actually, there's a method called the Pomodoro technique that works well for this. Basically, you work for 25 minutes, takes a 5-minute break, and after 4 rounds, you rest for a longer break of, let's say, 20 minutes. It's like interval training for your brain. Over time, you'll notice that you can focus longer without feeling too tired. There's one more thing I often hear is I need music to focus. So music can be helpful, but it depends on how you actually use it. If you're using to block out noisy surrounding, it can work great, creating a bubble that keeps distraction at bay. But be careful, music can also pull you into internal distraction. You might start thinking about the lyrics, a past party, or weekend plan. So, if you want to use music, go for something without word. Instrumental tracks or ambient sound works best. That way you stay focused without triggering your imagination to wander. Personally, I love listening to movie soundtracks. I'm thinking about Hans Zimmer, the composer of the music of Inception, Interstellar, basically all the blockbuster of Christopher Nolan, or even Joe Hisaishi, who composed for the Ghibli movies. So now we've covered the first step of the memory process, getting information into your short-term memory through attention and your ability to concentrate. But that's just the beginning. Next, you need to move that information into your long-term memory, and that's what we'll dive into the next part of the video. So, how to memorize for the long term. Let's start with the example of remembering that Bishkek is the capital of Kyrgyzstan. So, without any logical link between Bishkek and Kyrgyzstan, the information tends to stay in your short-term memory and quickly vanish. You're gonna remember it for 1 hour maximum, not even, to be honest. So, how do we make it stick? By associating familiar elements. Kyrgyzstan is known for its mountain and snow leopard. So let's use that. No, Bishkek sounds like Bishkek. So Imagine a snow leopard standing on top of a mountain holding a giant check as if it just won the lottery. The snow leopard looks thrilled as the wind flutters the enormous check across the snowy peak. Why does it work? Because the mental image you create is multi-sensory. You can see the snow leopard with its thick fur, the crisp whiteness of the snow, the size of the movement of the check, hear the wind howling through the mountains, and even feel the cold air. The more senses you engage, visual, auditory, tactile, the more brain areas you actually activate. And the stronger your memory retention becomes. So now let's look at, for example, math formula. Step 1 in math formula, and this is super important, is actually understanding the formula in plain language, which often covers to 60 to 80% of the learning process. Step 2 is practice. Of course, repetition cements the formula into your mind. But what about those tricky parts, when you mix up sign of operation, right? Let's say, if you're revising for your GMAT and preparing for business school, then you can join our free school community and check our free Quench Cheat, where you will find all the tricks, tips, and shortcuts that you need to have in mind if you want to tackle the test comfortably. Again, if you can't remember if it's a plus or a minus, picture a thermometer, for example. A plus sign means it's hot, a minus sign means it's cold. If you're struggling with a square root, imagine a 3 root growing out of the equation. Identify the part of the formula that trip you up and transform them into weird, memorable images. Logical understanding should always be your foundation, but these playful tricks fill in the gaps. Now, even with this powerful association, there's still one last obstacle: forgetting. How do you keep information in your long-term memory? That's what we'll explore in the last part of the video. So, how and when to review so you don't forget. Once you've transferred information into your long-term memory, the next challenge is to retain it. This is where training and repetition come into play. I'm going to share several techniques, including principles that are deeply backed by scientific research. We explore 2 crucial questions. First, should you review to stop forgetting? And second, how often should you train your memory? So, if you're watching this, you've likely studied for something before, and when it comes to reviewing, many people say, oh, I'm just gonna reread my notes. And if that's you, here's some news. Starting with rereading is practically useless. This isn't just my opinion, it's something that was backed up by numerous studies. Let me share an experiment conducted at Harvard. So basically, in a lecture hall, students attended a 30-minute classes. After class, they were split into 3 groups. The first group did nothing. The second group reread the notes. And the third group answered questions related to the lesson. They repeated this process 4 times, totaling just over 2 hours. The result? The first and second group scored almost the same on the final evaluation. That means that rereading didn't offer any advantage over doing nothing. It's crazy, right? But the third group, the one that answered question, scored significantly higher. This highlights a crucial point. Testing yourself is far more effective than passive rereading. And here's what I recommend. Step 1, test yourself. Step 2, check your answers and review only what you got wrong. Why is this order essential? Because, you've probably experienced walking into an exam thinking, oh, easy, I got this. Only to walk out super frustrated, saying that, my teacher is a sadist. They tested the only thing that I didn't know. The truth is, there's no secret sadism training for teachers. What you encountered was the illusion of knowledge. When you reread notes, you naturally focus on what you already know while skimming over what you don't, giving you a full sense of mastery, which can be reassuring, of course, but useless. So, testing first exposed your weak points, making your subsequent review much more targeted and efficient. So, how can you test yourself? In my opinion, there's 3 main methods. First, classic blank page recall. Take a blank sheet, write the title of the topic, and try to recall everything you can. You can do this orally or in writing. Explain it to a friend or even to an imaginary audience. This method is demanding but extremely effective. Second, answer questions. Prepare a question beforehand or use outlines. Cover the details and try to recall what falls under each heading. Working with a study partner to quiz each other is also a very good option. And third is going to be multi-choices quizzes. And there's plenty of flashcard app for these that let you create your own flashcard and revision session. For example, one that I used when I was in Prepa was an app that is called Anki. I'll let you check it out if you're interested. Now, onto a critical question. How do you avoid forgetting over time? In bachelor exam, you might learn something at the start of the year and need to recall it for a final test 2 years later. Mastering long-term retention is hence essential. The first scientist to explore this was Hermann Ebbinghaus in 1885. He created what we call the forgetting curve, which shows how quickly we lose information without review. When you first learn something, you retain a high percentage, but within an hour, without any review, your retention plummets. The key to beating this curve is timing your review just before you start to forget. So here's how spaced repetition works. First review within an hour of learning. The second review, 1 day later. The third review is going to be 3 days after the second. The fourth review, a week later, and the fifth review, 2 weeks later, and so on and so on. With each review, the forgetting slope flattens, meaning you retain information longer and need fewer sessions over time. This spacing principle is incredibly effective, but can be tough to apply when you're juggling a heavy study load with multiple deadlines. So anyway, we've covered the 3 secrets to mastering your memory. First, focusing deeply to get information into your short-term memory, and then creating vivid association to transfer it to long-term memory, and then at the end using spaced repetition to keep it locked in your brain, to keep it in your brain for long term. So remember, having a good memory isn't something you're born with. It's a skill you can develop by eliminating distraction, staying active while learning, managing your mental load, taking care of your physical health, and building your focus endurance. In this sense, doing all that, you're going to create the perfect condition for learning. When you combine these focus techniques with creating memorable association and following a strategic review schedule, you transform the way information sticks in your brain. You're not just studying hard, you're actually studying smarter. And this is where you can actually stand out. I've seen this method works for hundreds of students getting into top school worldwide, whether you're preparing for the GMAT, applying to business school, or tackling any academic challenge. These scientifically backed techniques can help you achieve your goals with less stress and better results. So start implementing these strategies today, and you will be amazed at how much more you can remember and for how much longer. Your brain has incredible potential. These methods simply help you to unlock it. Anyway, if you like this video, you can check out my YouTube channel where I have other videos discussing tips and tricks about getting into top business school, universities, and best universities in the world. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you in the next one.